Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got our final video on the predictions. In this video, we're doing our preseason playoff predictions. Based on the standings we've talked about in the last two videos, we're touching on my current playoffs, how they would shape up, and who I would have in the preseason as my Stanley Cup champion. I'll let you guys thoughts on this video, and I'll touch on all of my playoff matchups coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this with all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. So in today's video, we've got our preseason playoff predictions. So very interesting note there. We did our Western Conference and Eastern Conference standings predictions in the last two videos. Check them out if you haven't already. But basically, if you haven't already, you should definitely check it out. But I will be giving you guys my current standings predictions for the teams who would make the playoffs. So in the Eastern Conference, 92-point Buffalo will be second wild card, 99-point Ottawa will be first wild card, Jersey 97 points, Columbus 103 points, and Carolina 115 points will be the top three teams in the Metro. Florida 100 points, Toronto 103 points, and Montreal 109 points will be the top three teams in the Atlantic. In the West, Anaheim will make the playoffs in the second wild card position at 94 points. Winnipeg will be first wild card with 97 points. Top three in the Central will be Utah with 101, Dallas with 104, Minnesota with 108, and top three teams in the Pacific will be LA with 98, Edmonton with 102, and Vegas with 113. So those are my current predictions for the standings. So based on those standings predictions, my current playoff matchups for round one of the playoffs as it sits with my predictions would be a Vegas Anaheim first round matchup, Edmonton LA first round matchup, Minnesota Winnipeg first round matchup, and Dallas Utah first round matchup. Carolina would take on Buffalo, Columbus would take on New Jersey, Montreal would take on Ottawa, and Toronto would take on Florida. Now, there's a very good chance none of these playoff matchups are the ones that are going to be happening at the end of the season. And also at the end of the season, you're going to have a whole bunch of teams who add at the trade deadline, who make moves at the trade deadline. So these teams are going to look completely different. So my view on this is going to change as the season goes along. But as current point in time, here's my predictions for the playoffs. So yeah, Vegas and Anaheim as current point in time with the way these things were constructed in the offseason. Vegas with Mitch Marner is going to be a dominant force to get rid of. The Ducks are going to be able to make the playoffs for the first time since 2017, which will be a good step in the right direction for the Anaheim Ducks. But I just think that team's a team who's going to have a learning experience in that first round. Vegas handled them in 5. I don't think that's too much of a surprise if the Ducks take on the Golden Knights in the postseason. I think it's Golden Knights all day long. Vegas is just that deep, and the Ducks are that inexperienced. So my prediction for Vegas Anaheim will be Vegas in 5. You got Edmonton LA for the 5th straight year. I was really hoping I would be able to predict something else and put one of those other teams like Vancouver Anaheim in here, but no, we've got another Edmonton Los Angeles first round matchup. In this one, I do think Los Angeles takes it in 6 games. I think LA exercises their demons. They need to. I think their additions of Dumoulin and Ceci are going to be good for the regular season, but I think the postseason is sort of like a shutdown type pair. They could be really solid for the Los Angeles Kings. And I think Edmonton, given the fact they went to back-to-back cup finals, they're going to be pretty banged up, pretty tired. We saw that in years past when Pittsburgh went to back-to-back cups and Tampa went to 3 straight. So I think Edmonton's going to be a little bit tired and a little bit lackluster than they've been in previous years. And I think LA will be able to exercise their demons and take them out in 6 games, setting a second round matchup of Vegas Los Angeles. Then we saw the Minnesota Wild take on the Winnipeg Jets. The Wild, in my opinion, do have the better regular season. Like, they win the Central Division, they have better point total. Really good stuff there from Minnesota Wild, and I think playoff Hellebuck rears his head again. I don't think they just have an overly good first round against Minnesota, and for the first time in 10 years, I do have the Minnesota Wild advancing past round 1, taking down the Winnipeg Jets. It's a beautiful piece of work there from Minnesota Wild. And then we have the Dallas Stars taking on the Utah Mammoth. Dallas has already gone to 3 straight Western Conference finals. I know they haven't been to a cup, but they are still going to be a pretty tired and banged up team come the playoffs this upcoming season. Utah will make it for the first time in franchise history, which will be a really good accomplishment for them. But I think Utah's going to go above just making the playoffs. I think they have a young upstart team that's going to be poised to do some damage in the postseason, and I have Utah taking down the Dallas Stars in 7 games. I think both teams have pretty solid teams. I just think with Dallas being pretty tired after going through 3 straight Western Conference Finals, and with Utah having such a young and bright team, I think Utah will be able to slip by Dallas and advance to round 2, setting up a round 2 matchup of Minnesota and Utah. In the Eastern Conference, you have Carolina versus Buffalo. Buffalo just making it to the playoffs is an accomplishment in and of itself. I mean, 14 years they've been without playoffs. So like I said, they're able to sneak to a wildcard spot, but they get the President's Trophy winning Carolina Hurricanes. So like we just talked about in our Eastern Conference Series preview, are a behemoth of a team. Like, they are going to be lethal to play against. So no surprise here, I'm taking the Carolina Hurricanes at this point in time. In 6 games, I think Buffalo will be able to win a couple, their first few playoff wins in decades. But they are going to be able to fall to the Carolina Hurricanes to advance to round 2. You have the Devils taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. So the Jackets surprise a whole bunch of people, make it to 2nd spot in the Metro Division. Devils are back to 3rd spot in the Metro Division. But I think with the Devils' experience over the past couple of years, they'll be able to handily take down the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think the Jackets will be able to put some fight, but I think like with all of their inexperience on that roster, they won't be able to get to that next level. And I think the Devils do have that next level, plus a solid goaltender, Jacob Markstrom. So I have the Devils sweeping the Columbus Blue Jackets to advance to round 2 and set up a second round matchup of Jersey and Carolina. Then in the other side, you have the Ottawa Senators take on the Montreal Canadiens, an Eastern Canadian battle. I think this will be a very interesting first round series. I think that the Senators are a really solid team who just made it to the playoffs last year. Habs are a really solid team who just made it to the playoffs last year. I think the Montreal Canadiens will have the better regular season of these two teams, but I think just stacking up wise, Ottawa has the better defense. Ottawa definitely has the better goaltending, and I think you can debate who has the better forward group, but I'll probably give my edge right now to Ottawa. So I think even though Ottawa was the lower seed, they will be able to take down the Montreal Canadiens in 5 games. I do think Montreal will put up another good effort, but I just think Ottawa at this point in time is a little more talented than the Montreal Canadiens. And then you have another rematch of last year's second round series between Toronto and the Florida Panthers. Very interesting playoff matchup here between the Panthers and Maple Leafs. I think the Panthers are going to be a very solid team. I think the Maple Leafs are also going to be a pretty solid team. Like, I think these two teams are going to be points away from each other in the regular season, but I think without Marner, with the changes to their forward group, and with Florida being a pretty banged up team coming off with 3 straight Cup final appearances, I think that this will be the Toronto Maple Leafs series to lose. I think the Leafs exercise their demons again and win the series over the Florida Panthers in 7 games, thus ending the Florida Panthers' chances of a three-peat. So my second round matchups will be this: Vegas will take on Los Angeles, Minnesota would host Utah, Carolina would host New Jersey, and another Battle of Ontario as Toronto would host Ottawa. So in Vegas, Los Angeles, I think both teams are really good. I think Los Angeles' sort of slow-paced game and defensive-minded style will sort of make problems for the Vegas Golden Knights, but I still think with their offseason additions and probably making some more moves at the trade deadline, this team is going to be one heck of a tough out. So I'm going to say the Vegas Golden Knights do take it in 6 games and advance to another conference final appearance. I think that's what, 4 or 5 in 9 years of existence. Whereas for the Minnesota Wild, take on the Utah Mammoth. I think this is where Utah's magical run ends. Minnesota's a pretty good team, and they do have a lot more experience recently than Utah does. I think Utah just winning a playoff series will be good enough for the current time for the Utah Mammoth. So I do have Minnesota winning in 6 games and taking down Utah to advance to their first conference final appearance in ages. Then we have the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the New Jersey Devils, another rematch of a recent series last year in the first round. These two teams have seen a lot of each other, but sort of like in recent memory, Carolina is going to handily beat the New Jersey Devils. That Carolina Hurricanes team is going to be a scary team to face, and in a Metro Division that has a lot of weaker teams, I think Carolina is going to once again be able to breeze by the New Jersey Devils in 5 games. And then we have another Battle of Ontario, same as last year, except this year it's in the second round. I think Toronto and Ottawa are going to go head to head. I think Toronto's going to have a really solid series. I think Ottawa is going to sort of learn from their mistakes they made last year, but I am still going with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Even though I'm a Senators fan, I would love to see the Senators make it to the conference final. I think at this point in time, Toronto is still a slight bit of a better team, so they'll be able to make it to their first conference final in ages. So you have a conference final of Vegas, Minnesota, and Carolina, Toronto. So Vegas Golden Knights would host the Minnesota Wild. It'll be a very interesting back and forth series, a rematch of last year's first round series between Vegas and Minnesota, but I do think the Wild are a little bit better depth than they did last year, a little bit more balance. And remember, they were an overtime goal away from going up 3-1 in that series against the Vegas Golden Knights. So I think they are going to be able to take out the Golden Knights ever so slightly in 6 games, and the Wild will be able to make it to their first ever Stanley Cup final appearance after taking on the Golden Knights. And then you'd have the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. A conference final that I think a lot of us were expecting last year after Toronto went up 2-0 over the Florida Panthers in that series. So finally this happened. We see a Toronto-Carolina Eastern Conference final. But once again, Carolina just has problems winning in the Eastern Conference. And I think this is going to be a year Toronto fans are going to remember for a long time. I'm going to say the Leafs win in 5 games, handily beats the superpowered Carolina Hurricanes team, and they will advance to their first Stanley Cup final appearance since 1967. So we'll have a Stanley Cup final this year of the Minnesota Wild and the Toronto Maple Leafs. This will be a very interesting series. I think that the Wild stack up better forward-wise. They have a little more depth. I think defensive-wise, once again, the Wild have one of the best defenses in the entire NHL. Goaltending-wise, I think it's debatable. Gustafsson versus Stolarz, like that would be a really interesting goaltending battle in the Stanley Cup final. But I do think that Minnesota Wild will have what it takes to take down the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think the Wild will take it down in 6 games and be able to do some major damage in the Stanley Cup final to win their first ever Stanley Cup. So very interesting to know there. So those are my playoff predictions as it's right now. Vegas will be Anaheim, LA will be Edmonton, Minnesota Winnipeg, Utah Dallas, Carolina will beat Buffalo, Jersey Columbus, Ottawa will beat Montreal, and Toronto will beat Florida in round 1. Then Vegas, Minnesota, Carolina, Toronto advance to the conference final. Minnesota and Toronto advance to the Stanley Cup final, where Minnesota wins their first ever Stanley Cup. So definitely, I'll let you guys' thoughts. What are your guys' predictions for this upcoming season? Right now, what's your standings look like in the Eastern Conference? What's your standings look like in the Western Conference? And if you had to give me a playoff predictions as of right now, who would your Stanley Cup favorite be as it's right now? Mine's Minnesota. What's yours? I'll let you guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk about for today. I'm going to like this video, and for all to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. I also have a blog, comment news, rumors, analysis. So if that's going to check that out, I'll link that in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.